Vice Chair Lofold.
Present.
I'm Clerk Mikesell. I am here. Treasurer Sadowski.
Here.
Member Williams.
Here.
Superintendent Magus will be joining us remotely momentarily. Assistant Superintendent Bonds.
Present.
Secretary Brown. Sorry. And we have our student reps joining us from East.
Information. So first up, without further ado, we're going to bring up the Director for Advancing Equity. She will be providing an update related to our American Indian Ed resolution of concurrence or non-concurrence from last year. So I'll bring up our Director of Advancing Equity.
Good evening. Good to see you all again. Marisa Garver-Carrera, Director of Advancing Equity, excited to be here with you all tonight to discuss American Indian education in our district, along with our partners and members from APAC. So I wanted to talk a little bit tonight about kind of my learning journey of American Indian Ed as a fairly new Minnesotan. It's been a journey for me to really understand the protections and historical context and the history of our region and also of the state. So I'm happy to talk to you a little bit about that today, and then also to introduce the APAC members to talk about concurrence, non-concurrence. Thanks, Shannon. Thanks, Shannon. And so just to be clear that, you know, my job and my aim is to always center equity in everything we do, right? And that being, you know, really part of our core mission here. And so I just want to just show this and to make sure that we are always centering ourselves in an equitable mindset and that we're giving every kid what they need. So I wanted to talk a little bit, and there's one little typo I just found in here, so I apologize for that. But I want to talk a little bit about my approach, and so kind of my theory of action here, as I said, this being a learning journey for me. And so I wanted to talk about how I approach this in a very educator way, which is a theory of action. So how I've approached this is if I really spend time, you know, doing some authentic listening and building deep relationships, while also educating myself on the current legislation, again, that historical context and best practices around the state and the country, then I will build the necessary trust and sharpen our organizational focus to really create a culture of genuine collaboration. And all of this is so that we can drive a meaningful progress for American Indian and students and families. And so, you know, we'll talk about how we still have a long way to go there, but we are making small steps forward, and you know, that is the goal, that we are really making meaningful progress with our American Indian students and families. So again, just a little bit about my approach. Shannon, you can just click through. So again, listening is a huge thing for me. To be able to build relationships and to understand, really had to prioritize listening. And so examples of ways that I have intentionally tried to do that, if you can just click through, is visited schools, talked with principals, met with our American Indian homeschool liaisons, attended APAC meetings, met with APAC members. And so that has been very important to me, to be able to speak with our American Indian community directly, and also speak to our leaders in schools on you know, the things that they are championing, the things that we need to work on, and the experiences currently that our American Indian students are having in our schools. And all of this, of course, is to learn, right? Learning from those conversations and meetings, but also learning with the leaders of the state, right? So meeting with the MDE, Director of American Indian Education, attending APAC training with some of you and some of our other leaders hosted by TNAC, and working with expert Jen Murray, who is also part of TNAC, has been really, really helpful in me getting up to speed quickly on what I need to know. And then also spending, of course, time on my own researching around MTE and American Indian Ed practices and policies. And all of this, again, is to really make sure that we are partnering, and Shannon, you can click through, thank you. And so, to me, partnering is really making sure, continuing to clarify those roles and responsibilities of everyone in our partners, and then, arranging those pre-meetings and meeting with chair members, and again, working to align on our goals and our priorities to make meaningful progress for our students and their families. And so wanted to talk a little bit about the concurrence, non-concurrence process. So this is all the same content that you all, the APAC and you all did last year before I was here. I just put it in a slightly different format. You should have received that information ahead of time. On 121, we met with APAC, and I went through line by line through the 16 recommendations that APAC had put forward last year, and we talked, had really good discussions and really honest discussions, and I thank them for their grace. As for a lot of these things, we were not necessarily where we wanted to be, and that's for a number of reasons, right? Some of that is around turnover, and knowing that we have had a lot of folks in different, in the American Indian ed coordinator role, and also acknowledging that my position is new, right? We had a coordinator role that now is a director role, and so that is slightly different. And so, it's helping ensure that there is more dedicated capacity to overseeing this work. And so once we fully get an American Indian coordinator on board, I'm really excited to support them and have more people dedicated to making sure we are building a sustainable program and making sufficient progress for our American Indian students and families. And so again, I have been really showing up at APAC and our other parent committee meetings, talking about, acknowledging and learning a lot, and also talking about how can we move forward, and what's kind of also my vision for that, right? And so expressed to them that really the state aid plan that you all should have a copy of, and had a copy previously, but that really is a guiding light for us, right? Those are the agreed upon goals and budget and all the things, and so that's going to be key for us moving forward. And then consolidating priorities. So we've talked a lot about how can we get on the same page around priorities to support each other and collaborate and partner together. And I've been very, grateful for their honest feedback around that. And we talked about, how 16 things felt like a lot of things, and we want to make sure that we're doing a few things well. And after some of us had the opportunity to go to that Teen Act training, and they were providing some recommendations around narrowing our focus, that was really helpful, I think, to both of us, to APAC, and then also to me, to figure out, okay, what is our line priorities? How do we move forward? And then for me, that I have the opportunity to really build from the ground up. I have been stressing with all my teams and with APAC that my focus is really around systems and structures, because I really think that's the only way to create systemic and equitable change. And also just that, you need people over time to do that. And so turnover and things like that, it is hard to make movement and momentum and to implement and sustain systems and structures. And so I'm hopeful with also now this position being a director, that we can work together to build those systems and support one another, so that we have the opportunity to, be successful and work together.
Thank you. I'll just step in here real quick for Assistant Superintendent Bonds. Do we have any questions? Turn it back over to you, Assistant Superintendent Bonds.
Thank you. Member Lofold?
I just have more of a comment. Just I've really appreciated getting to know you too at the EAC meetings, and I certainly think that you understand how to gain trust and how to build from getting to know people, learning, listening. I really love your action plan of listen, learn, and partner. So thank you for taking the time and the work to do that, and we're lucky to have you join our team and our family here at Duluth Public Schools. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Would you like to go ahead
Yeah,
and
I'm going to
introduce our
pass it
APAC?
over to our American Indian Parent Advisory Committee to talk about their resolution vote of concurrence, non-concurrence.
The mic and pass it if you're going to share it. Just make sure who is ever speaking that they have the mic in front of them. So thank you and welcome.
Thank you for having us here today. We're just a small representation of the APAC. First, we'll just introduce ourselves. I'm Lydia Schinkel. I'm a parent within the district and a member of the APAC committee.
My name is Jamie Dela Cruz, and I work for the Indian Education Department.
I'm Tia Goodsky. I'm a parent on the APAC committee.
For the purpose of this, I am a parent of an East High School student. I'm Emily Silverness. I'm also an employee of ISD 709. I'm a special education teacher at Congdon.
Welcome.
Many of the board members know, so by state statute, we as a committee have the responsibility to vote for a resolution of concurrence and non-concurrence every year. And the agenda cover sheet does talk a little bit about what that means and the statutes related to that. So we did, as an APAC committee, take a vote of concurrence and non-concurrence, and we did unanimously vote non-concurrence for the school district. And as a part of our responsibilities in that is to bring some recommendations to the district of some things that we would like to see happen over the next year specifically to help bring the district into concurrence. And this year I feel they're very simple, as Ms. Garva-Carrera talked about, just really trying to focus in on a few things and do really well on those, and then just continue to get better and better and expand and get more detailed as time goes. So I think we'll just read them, and then if there's any discussion or questions that the board has, we're here to answer that. So the first recommendation is that we recommend continuous and intentional tracking and compiling of school data on all American Indian student at the pre-K and elementary level, attendance, behavior, MCA testing data, and the same information set at the middle school level. And for high school students, graduation, attendance, behavior, rates of 15-day drop, credits earned, and the extracurricular activities that our students are involved in.
We also want data specifically on the Indigenous cohort at the high school level. Can I just add to this that we do hear that there's some positive things happening with that Indigenous cohort. Something that came up in our group is that we don't have the data. So to make a concurrence, non-concurrence, this is supposed to be a data-driven decision. We don't have the data to say, yes, this is working or not working. And without the data, it's really hard to say, yeah, we agree or we don't agree. So data is really important to us. Our second recommendation is we want solid and continuous onboarding and training for the American Indian education staff. We want to prevent this turnover, and we want to strengthen our Indian education team.
The third recommendation that we have is to prioritize the hiring, training, and the support of a dedicated Indian education coordinator to ensure that Minnesota's state statutes are being held to and adhered with fidelity. As this board is well aware, we've had quite a high turnover with the coordinator for American Indian Education in the past 2 school years. As Ms. Garva-Carrera talked about, that turnover has created some pretty significant issues with consistency and support for our staff and our students, and the ability to move forward in a positive way for our students when we don't have consistent leadership to help move forward and collaborate with. And so that is one of our really big priorities is that having that person and having them be supported and trained well, that we can really start and move forward and not have to kind of go back to the drawing board every time a new coordinator is hired, which is what's been happening. Every time we have a new coordinator of the committee, it's kind of having to like reteach the coordinator what we do and what that looks like. And so hopefully we can get somebody and then just having that be that guiding light to know what our students are needing and to be consistent.
Our fourth recommendation is participation in the American Indian Education Program self-assessment for you, for the administration, for the teachers, district staff, the school board, to help inform the services for American Indian students. We need the big picture of what's being done to support our students and make sure that all the key players know what's there. So we need their voices in the room. We can do this via survey. We don't necessarily need everybody attending our APAC meeting, but without their voices, we don't know what's going on throughout the district. So we would like that survey completed by everybody.
Did you want to speak on that at all?
I was asked to talk a little bit about that. That is kind of the, for the state Indian education program, that self-assessment rubric is really important for everyone to participate in, not only to know what the Indian education program is doing for American Indian students, but also for other people to consider their role in programming opportunities and the education for American Indian students, but also for you to recognize and learn, like what is happening to kind of put that together, those opportunities and supports, and to really kind of look at that so that we can start to build a system of resources and services that's been referred to and build on our strengths and grow and see what's missing. So that's what I wanted to say about that. And then develop a strategic plan for the American Indian students based on that information. So those are the recommendations, and we really try to narrow it down and consider a lot of the information that Marisa talked about also, in trying to establish some framework so that we can really build and see what this relationship should look like and work together. So, thank you. Any questions?
Member Meixel?
Thank you so much for taking time off this evening to come and be with us, and all the hard work that you do throughout the year for your families and for all of our students across the district. I'm curious about the self-assessment tool that you speak of. Is that something that's already in existence that we have access to?
Yes, it is in existence. It comes in a paper format, but some of the parent committee and I worked together and we were able to put it into a Google form. So that has been shared with our clerical and Marisa, and so at some point we can start to figure out how that should be shared in the district so people can start to participate. Yes, yep, it's a state tool. It's something that was created by Department of Education, yeah, MDE, so it's something that's available and it's used by many school districts to guide this practice.
Excellent. I look forward to hearing more about it as we go through the recommendations and have your response.
And the self-assessment tool, when we look at the concurrence and non-concurrence, when we look at voting for that self-assessment tool, it's not just for teachers and staff, there's also one for students, there's one for parents, so it's gathering information from all the stakeholders, and that information is part of what, when we look at the self-assessment of, is the district meeting these goals that MDE has put out, that it's the same self-assessment that when we're looking at the concurrence and non-concurrence, that, so it's just the same information. So when you all are participating in that, it helps us to really see, is there concurrence? Is there non-concurrence? Is everybody on the same page? And can help inform decisions moving forward to hopefully become concurrent at one point in time.
Chair Derek Eater?
Thank you. I had the same question, and I'm thrilled to hear that it's an MDE tool, so that will be great for us, and I look forward to any way that the board can participate. We would be willing participants in helping move towards this goal, so thank you. My quick question was, the data specifically on the Indigenous cohort, are you talking about data that's going to be reflecting like graduation attendance, behavior, 15-day? So is that something you're interested in looking at, that data maybe desegregated, where you have American Indian students' data, graduation attendance, and then another data set that is the Indigenous cohort data, so that you can sort of compare and contrast that data?
Yeah, and we did talk about, we do actually almost have a fishbowl experiment because we have the Indigenous cohort and we have American Indian students at Denveld. We also have American Indian students at East. So Duluth is sort of lucky in the fact that we do have almost an experimental group by parent choice right now. So we can show in data whether this is working or not. We hear that it's working from the liaisons. We hear that it's working from the families, but they have access to that data and we don't have access to that data. We would like to support, we hear Tuscan is doing amazing things at Denveld. We want to support that. We want to be celebrating those things.
Great, thank you. Thank you for answering my questions. That's the only one. And thank you for appearing here today. I appreciate your time.
Member Lowfold?
So yeah, same thing. I appreciate, and I appreciate the focus on 5 really deliberate and detailed steps to work on. One has multiple areas, but I still think they're all connected, so I really appreciate that. When we look at number 5, to develop a strategic plan for our American Indian students, is that the role of our integrationists, that they would be able to help us with that?
So that's from my understanding, and Ms. Garver-Carrera might be able to speak more. So right now, we do have Jennifer Murray on contract with Indian Ed to help just kind of in this interim time while we're working, getting a coordinator. And then, so that this Indian Education Strategic Plan is actually something that is being discussed and developed with Jen Murray at this time. So it's something that is already, I'm not sure the level of progress or like action steps that have been taken towards that, but it is something that she has brought to the committee when we've talked about how can we achieve these goals that we have, and when we're making our state aid plan. Some of the things that were more, how can we make a strategic plan that leads into that? Because some of these things are bigger than a state aid plan. Some of these concerns are bigger than a state aid plan with 5 specific, 6 specific areas with small goals. Some of these are really lofty and more systemic, district-wide issues that are not really achievable in that kind of a plan. And so that's something that is already being formulated within the district. I think this recommendation is that we want to see that come to fruition. Right now, it's conversations. I'm not sure the work that's being done on that, but that we want to see that followed through on, because our students, we know that there's issues and disparities pre-K-12, right? And so we want to make sure that there is, no matter who's a coordinator, who's on the board, or who's superintendent, that we have a plan that can be followed, that our students are going to be able to succeed no matter who the leaders are.
So I'm going to further your explanation for me, because in my mind, I had an inflection on probably the wrong word that made it look like we were going to do a plan for each American Indian student. That's where my brain went as a teacher, like, okay, how are we going to, who's doing that for every American Indian student? So thanks for the clarification. Just a follow-up question, and it's really, for me, it goes back to my teaching years, and I don't know where the disconnect is with getting data. I don't know if that is a privacy right issue. I also know that at times when you come to the table, or when I'm at functions with American Indian students, I don't know how we identify all of them, and I don't know if we're focusing on our American Indian students that are tending not to be as successful as we'd like in our school system, or are, or all students, because then some students don't identify on that enrollment form about their culture. And so I'm always a bit confused when you continue to come back, and I appreciate that you share it with us, and I'm following, about how many American Indian students are receiving and that we're focused on, that are identifiable. But is that shareable with our teaching staff, or with our school board, or with you as parent, a committee of parent? Where does that line fall? And if there's work we can do legislatively to open up some data abilities, I don't know. Sometimes I'm just confused about what students are we focusing on as far as receiving and wanting the data for, and all of that.
So so who's considered an American Indian student? There's different programs that the district has and different funding sources, and so those have their own statutory requirements. Some of them it's a self-identified if they check it on the form, right? We can't force somebody to identify or not identify, and so when a family self-identifies, that's a certain pool of funding. When they're an enrolled member or a descendant of a specific, and it's verified by the tribe, then there's different types of funding. So there's forms that parents, that have to be submitted and verified. Some of it is self-identification. So when we talk about on our American Indian students, it's these families and students that have identified to the district that is a classification that they want noted for them. It should be, and as a staff, you have access to Infinite Campus, it's a flag in Infinite, or it's in Infinite Campus. So like our staff can see, like, it's part of the demographics for students. So it is a part of the demographics.
Yeah, and currently, like sitting as a staff, I can look up and I can tell you if a student is Native American. Like, if I can say a student is Native, there is absolutely no reason that the other people that are in sovereign nations who are working with the Native students shouldn't have access to that data, especially if we're supposed to vote on a law that is concurrent or non-concurrent, whether or not something is working or not. To me, that doesn't make sense, that there shouldn't be any data access. That doesn't make sense to me, because I look at data every single day, both in special education and general education. I mean, I'm constantly looking at reading data, math data, MCA data. Are they growing? Are they not growing? We don't have any data. We don't have attendance data. We don't have reading data. We don't have graduation data. That's guesswork to me. That's not measurable right now. We could populate any of that data. It sounds like it's more like a matter of a person, maybe a person's job in tech, I would imagine, should be able to extrapolate that data, I would imagine.
I think some of it is that definitely there is a classification difference for each student, and that's why some of this focus on making sure there's good, solid training is also to understand how we're going to implement that programming. You know, we have to have a plan for the different statuses of the students, and also like their sovereignty and their tribal status. That really is a essential part of this framework, understanding what that is and what the role and the responsibility is to each different classification of those students. And then how to implement that programming to make it equitable, to make it address the unique needs of each of those students. So those are some of the things that we really feel like in these other recommendations, having somebody who is going to be very solid in this knowledge, in this job, is going to come into play here in this strategic plan even, how we're servicing the students throughout the district, how we're meeting the needs of each individual student, how we're identifying those classifications, and how we're developing programming, you know, and then the collaboration part, are all the stakeholders participating in this program plan? So that, to me and to the group, is really what, when we talk about this strategic plan, that's also what we're looking for in that. So yes, like how the forms are one part of it, but then there is a whole nother piece of that. And there are several groups that collect this information. It's again coming back to some of the things that Marisa talked about and that you're even talking about, Jill, is how are we going to create the policies that we need to make sure that this information is available so that we're making those informed decisions, you know?
And I think that when we're talking about like having data, so we've gotten some data over time, but what we've talked about is when we want to look at what is the success, what's working and what's not, being able to measure, you know, like the MCA testing data, reading, math, proficiency, graduation rates, attendance. So some of what we get is more, we need things that are broken down to see this school, or are we looking at like kindergartners across the district? what does their reading proficiency look like? And then them as first, like, are they growing? Are they not growing? What schools are doing well and what aren't? And some of the data that we have received data, but it's not as detailed within the limitations of student privacy. Right? There are certain limitations that are put on just because we are not district staff, and so we don't have access and should not have access to all of the students' data, right? So we've gotten creative about cell size. You have to have 10 or more students to disseminate that data to protect student privacy. We know that there are certain schools that don't have a lot of American Indian students, Homecroft, Lakewood, Congdon, Leicester, right? So like you couldn't say the students at Leicester. If there's only 3, you could maybe pick them out. So we've talked about ways to help create cell sizes of data that can help us show that. And I think what we've gotten isn't, the data that we've gotten isn't usable to us in the way that we would like to see when we're looking at is the district meeting the goals? Are the plans that we're putting in place and the interventions that we're recommending in the district implementing, is that effective? Because if it's not working, then we need to find a new plan. And so I think and when we did tribal consultation with Fond du Lac last year, one of the things that they really wanted to have more emphasis on or know more about was attendance and what that looks like. It's not just, did you show up today? There's attendance about partial day, or like, when did you leave? When did you come, to help identify barriers. If we have elementary students who are coming to school late consistently, is it a family transportation problem? Is that something we can support? And so that was something that Fond du Lac, as our tribal partner and fiscal agent for federal funds, had shared that they would like also to have more data around, was the attendance at all grade levels and what that looks like. Because we can have all the services in the world, but if students aren't in the buildings, they can't receive those services. So when we say data, that's more of like, we can't make data-driven decisions and make smart goals for our state aid plan when we don't have some of that more specific data about these, especially these particular things.
So last year on August 13th, the APAC and the Title VI had made resolutions for a pretty strong list of data that did include the graduation rates, the attendance rates, but also other things that we want to look at with our American Indian students, like how many of them are receiving special education services, how many of them are participating in extracurriculars, because that speaks a little bit to the social and emotional health that these students are also going through. I think it would be helpful to be able to receive that data set quarterly so that we can compare by semester what are some of the trends that we're seeing in what grade, in what school, in what area. What are things that are working in those schools and in those areas? I think being able to have the same set of data consistently, we just need to work on a schedule for that so that we make sure that when we're looking at things, it really is based on numbers. So then when we have our recommendations, they can be SMART goals.
Member Lowfoot and then Member Meixel.
I think you had yours on first, though.
You can go ahead.
I love the idea of what we need to help the advisory committee see what they need to see with the students and help them grow. I'm struggling with the role. Where does that lie? Is that in the director that we're still trying to hire right now? Does the advisory committee have funds through the Indian Education to supply someone that can collect the data that you need? When you don't know exactly, like if I were to ask you right now, do you know how many American Indian students you would want us to collect data for? Do we have a number that we can work with so we know what kind of job description or what do we need for that data to happen? And I can see Marisa in the back too. Maybe directors have more ideas of where that responsibility. And I just ask that so the board has an idea about how we can work to support and where that job of collecting data so specific that you want and that you need, that we want to help you with. But I know that that's a tough thing.
I can
for
just
so many.
provide a new perspective as like a newcomer to the district, right? So I've worked in a lot of districts across the country, and I think a gap across the country is data systems and getting your systems to talk to one another, right? And so I know here we have EduClimber's fairly, kind of recent, and so we're still getting used to that system. And so it takes a while to get your systems updated fully with all the information, train folks on them, and then use them efficiently is a big gap across the country, right? And so I think for me, as a newcomer, I'm thinking about, okay, what are the systems we have? What are the pieces of things that we're tracking? And then how are those things talking? What story are they telling them? Because I agree, a lot of these data should be theoretically very easy to get. And I also think we have some improvement to do on how are we using data, how are we inputting data, and then how do we use it effectively. And so I have kind of also slow played this because I could jump to somebody and say, pull me the data on XYZ, but I don't think that's the whole story. And I'm also like trying to understand the story before I tell the story. And so I think that that's something that I've been working on and is really important to me because I believe that we should be sharing data and make that accessible in ways, of course, that protect student privacy. So I think that's something that with the new coordinator, it's going to be really important for that person to be trained in our data systems. And also then we provide that support to our folks that are in schools as well. To be able to make data-informed decisions. That's something that I am really emphasizing with all of my folks, but we're not there yet, right? And so I just wanted to talk about, data as a whole. I think we are very pro-data, and we want to also make sure that, when we're talking about progress to graduation, there's a lot of things that's not all in EduClimber that indicates whether a kid's on track or not. And also, like, maybe we need to look at these additional things for American Indian students as well. And so those are the conversations I'm hoping to have soon. I think that's what I was talking about, my ground approach, is we are still kind of laying that dirt and seeds that I'm hoping that really are going to pay off in the next year and so to come. And also that we're not always playing catch up, right? So I know, again, just the lift of understanding the compliance side of things is a lot. And I've been very honest with the APAC members around, that for me and their grace there, because it is a really big lift of making sure that we are following all the compliance things on top of how are we making our current practices better. So I know that was a long-winded answer, but I've just wanted to add some additional context on kind of my approach and also the data piece. So I think we have people in our district, and I've already talked to APAC about maybe I need to bring a certain person or perspective that has that and a more in-depth lens at one of our upcoming meetings to walk us through some of that. But I'm still on that journey myself as well.
Member Meixel?
I did want to try to address Ms. Lawful. I don't know the specific number for sure, but I know that when we've been applying for federal funds, we've had around 671 students self-identify. We could be in the range of 700 to 800 American Indian students in this district. I'm a little bit concerned because I feel like those students have been invisible for a long time. I do feel like they need the care and the concern and the strategic planning. For me, that's what equity means, is we lift from the bottom. If we help our Native kids, if we help our Black kids, if we help our immigrant kids, we're raising the academic outcomes for all of our students. But we have to start with those ones that need the help the most.
Chair Derek Jeter?
Thanks.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yep.
I just want to take the opportunity to thank you all so much for your commitment and recognize that there's long-term, committee members here. We have staff involved as well. So again, thank you for that. I really appreciate the recommendations that you provided. I will admit, as a on a personal note, for number 5, the developing our strategic plan, I'm going to be listening back to this meeting to really remember and make sure that I'm getting the details of what that exactly means to you. And I think that could be a challenge as we all work together with administration to really make sure that the district is seeing the purpose that you're hoping for that strategic plan, because, you know, strategic plans can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. So wanting to make sure that we have the proper expectations for the work that we'll be putting into that, and making sure that those conversations are ongoing so that when we get to next year and we review, you know, updates and outcomes, you know, we don't have groups thinking that we've done a fabulous job and another group saying like, you didn't even get close to it. So just wanting to make sure that we really get some more details on what exactly you're hoping for there and making sure that we're able to provide those things.
Thank you for sharing that, because I'll jump in because I was going to add mine towards the end. And I also want to say thank you to our APAC and Marisa, our director, for all of the work to getting us to this point, because it feels like we have a number that is we can wrap our heads around, right, and we can really tackle. So I would offer, just like you are bringing up, Member Mike, so that as everyone knows, we have 60 days as a district to respond to the recommendations. And typically what happens is we take the recommendations and then we go back and work with our team to decide how can we accomplish what is being asked of us. So I would offer to our APAC and Director Garvin Carrera, if there is an opportunity right away at the next APAC meeting, even for the team to come back or the APAC to just really focus on getting deeper on what some of these pieces mean, so we can know exactly what data sets we need for each and every one of these areas, so that we can really try to achieve hitting the goals that are aspired here. And so I guess there's a time for us to really get together and figure out what data sets we need for each and every one of these things sooner than later. And I think that ensure that we accomplish them. Member Chair Derek Eater.
Thank you. I'm just taking some time and digesting the first recommendation on the compilation of all the data that you're asking for. And I think the collection of data is very, very important. And I think what is probably more important than the collection of data is the why you're collecting the data. So figuring out this is the question that we're asking, and this is the data set that we need to answer that question. So I would ask maybe for recommendation 1 to help for clarification for the board, and then also that may help reflect on that development of a strategic plan, is those questions around these are the, or those clarifications around this is the why that we have, and this is the data set that we need in order to answer the why, because that might be a little bit more clarifying, because this is a lot, and sometimes you can get sort of buried underneath a lot of the data. That's happened to me a lot. A lot. It all comes at you, and it can be sort of overwhelming. So I would maybe ask for some clarifications around why are we looking at, what is the question we're trying to get to? Why are we trying to get to that question? And then how can the data support answering the why? That would just be one suggestion that I would have. But I appreciate listening to you all have this uniform message of wanting to focus on SMART goals and wanting to have those decisions be driven by be driven by the collection of that data, and making sure that the data that you're looking at is authenticated and can be corroborated, if that makes. That would maybe help that development of that strategic plan. So thank you for your time.
Member Williams.
Thank you. I would echo what Chair Derek Eater said as well. That's really, just helpful. And I really appreciate you differentiating between the strategic plan and the concurrence and non-concurrence. I think that is really helpful for all of us to keep in mind, because the strategic plan, strategic goals are big and lofty, and the concurrence and non-concurrence are more bite-sized what we can do right now. And I appreciate you guys talking about that. And it's really nice to see you at the table, Emily. I feel like this is the first time I've seen you here, so I appreciate it. As a parent and as staff, it's nice to see you here, so thank you. Oh, I was going to say one more thing. I'm sorry. We've all kind of acknowledged at the table too, just the rough couple of years it's been with the staff turnover and everything. And so I also want to say how much I appreciate the resiliency and the tenacity of APAC. This has been a journey, and it's been tough. None of us is gonna say that it's been a fun, easy ride the last couple of years, but I appreciate that we are coming together in a good way and just trying to put our best foot forward and to look out for our kids. So I thank each of you, and I hope that you put that same faith in us, because we believe in your kids. Your kids are our kids, and we want the best for them. So thank you.
Thank you. Any additional closing comments, APAC?
Actually, I would like to say something. I want to make sure that I acknowledge your comment that we need clarification of why and what, but I don't think it's our responsibility to know how or by whom. I don't think that that's fair to ask the APAC to know who in tech is capable of doing those data sets or what their cost is. I appreciate that we might need to find funding, but just I don't think that would be a fair comment for them to have to figure out.
So I think about that. So it's when, I think it was Member Lowfold asked about like who is responsible who does this data collection piece. So typically, and part of our recommendation 3 is the coordinator would usually be the person who collects and presents that data to our APAC. And so kind of goes hand in hand with not having that and then us not getting the data. It's this cyclical struggle that has been happening. So it is something that is the responsibility of the district, and that American Indian Education Funds should not be funding the acquisition of that data. That is a responsibility that the district has to provide the APAC to be able to make sound data-driven decisions when we're presenting plans to the state, when we're presenting plans to Fond du Lac, when the district is collaborative. That's part of that meaningful collaboration piece, is the district using the district resources to provide us with those. And that's usually the conduit has historically been the coordinator. If that's something that, within the district, a decision is made that's done internally differently, but that's historically, it's been the coordinator who has gathered and presented that data. I guess just like kind of my closing is I just would appreciate the conversation that we've had here today. We were very intentional about presenting at COW so that we could have some discussion versus at a regular school board meeting where it's just kind of, here's our things and have a great day. I think it's been a really productive conversation, and we appreciate the Ms. Garvey-Carrera's commitment that she's made to coming to our meetings and being really collaborative and meaningful, and having school board members. We've seen some school board members coming to our meetings as well, and I would like to see that continue, as that I think helps bring back for you all to have some other understanding of what the conversations are looking like, what's happening, because Indian education is very complex. And there's a lot of different statutes and requirements and things like that. And so I appreciate and would encourage the continued school board member presence at our meetings. I think it helps have more understanding, reduce some of those barriers, and have higher levels of collaboration. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you. And as I shared, board and community, the district has 60 days to respond to the vote of non-concurrence and the recommendations that have been presented here. And we look forward to working with APAC to seek greater clarification and determine some metrics so that we can accomplish what has been asked of us here. So thank you. Next, we have a presentation being presented by Director Larva, who is the Director of Secondary Schools. We have Cindy Miller, who is our media specialist, and we have Greg Krieger. And our director, Krieger, is on, he's remote with us, and he is here. So he is available as well to take questions and may have things to say as well. So this presentation is related to AI implementation. So we know there's a lot of questions that have surfaced related to the district's rollout of Gemini for our secondary students and to our staff. We want to make sure that we provide some additional information related to the rollout for not only the board, but also for the community. And I'll turn it over to Director Larva, who will walk us through a presentation. And make sure, please, introduce everyone.
Greetings, board members. I'm Jen Larva, Director of Secondary Education, and I brought with me.
Hi, I'm Cindy Miller. I am Library Media Specialist at Congdon and the Computer Science Lead for the district.
Greg, do you want to introduce yourself?
Board members, I'm Greg Krieger, Director of Technology. I'm joining the conference in St. Cloud this evening. I appreciate your allowing me to participate remotely.
All right, we're going to just jump right in. Your time is valuable, and so is ours, so we'll just keep moving forward. So just wanting to share with you some beliefs that we have about artificial intelligence. That's what AI stands for. I'm going to really kind of let Cindy talk a lot. She is our lead for computer science and has 0.2 of her position dedicated to rolling out computer science across the district. She came to Greg, myself, and Julie Staver summertime sometime. August, to start saying we need to really have a planful approach for how we're going to start embedding the learning around AI. We know that students are using it outside of school already. And so like, how do we have a responsible use of AI within our school setting? And so I'm going to turn it over to her and we'll kind of keep moving forward. If you need me to pop in, I'll keep popping in.
Okay, thank you. So these are three beliefs that we have, and our decision-making revolves around these three things. So the first is students and staff. What we want to do is reduce inequities and expand opportunities for our students around the use of AI. And secondly, maintaining a human-centered approach, AI being a tool, not replacing our educators, and giving the teachers autonomy in how AI is used within their classroom. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. Then the third is just recognizing the environmental impact and maintaining digital safety and keeping our data secure and that kind of thing. These four things are our objectives. Empowering educators to utilize AI as a high-level classroom assistant. That would be teaching with AI, like how a teacher can use AI to differentiate learning and making education more equitable for our students across all of our schools. Preparing secondary students with skills to navigate in the age of AI and prepping them for what comes next after their high school years. And establishing a walled garden for safe, acceptable AI learning. So we'll talk about that. There's a reason that we chose Gemini, Google Gemini, for our purposes of using AI with students. And then acknowledging current student access and use of AI tools. We have data that shows that students use AI like crazy during the school year on their personal devices, and it drops off as soon as school's over. So, and we'll be collecting more data coming up here soon. These are four reasons that we need to do this. Do I need to read all those? specifically having our students be prepared to work with AI outside of the school as soon as they're done with our services and where they go after that. And acknowledging that AI is not perfect and that our students need to maintain critical thinking skills and build those critical thinking skills and use AI as an assistant, not as a replacement for any of their education.
And I think one of the things, as we said earlier, is that students are already using AI. We already have teachers that are feeling the impacts of AI use at school. And so we need to find a way to build that AI literacy, as you'll see on a lot of our slides, around how to use AI ethically, how to use it, and when to use it. Like, when is it appropriate to use AI?
So I think in the next slide, we will talk about what's
AI literacy.
This is a definition of what AI is, and so AI literacy means knowing how to use AI tools effectively and ethically. It's not just a tech skill, it's a human superpower that balances understanding how the technology works with knowing how it impacts our world. So this is our strategic long-term vision. We've been meeting since the beginning of September, and the task force is the three of us and Julie Stauber, who is the secondary curriculum coordinator. And so we made plans to use common language across all of our departments, and that's coming up on our PD Day in March.
And we'll show you what that means.
So then that's really just being really clear to students when you could use AI and when you cannot. Alignment with state and university technology leaders. I'm on several different committees that have to do with how the state is implementing or suggesting that we implement AI in our district. And we're on top of how things are going in the state and in the country with AI. Robust governance, we have worked on a regulation and had a regulation passed in December that you'll remember probably. We've taken a look at academic integrity policies and put some digital guardrails in place. One of the most important things is to make sure that we protect our students' data. So those are the four things that make our long-term vision.
So the last one being protecting our student data and our district data relates to that walled garden concept. And I don't know, Greg, if you want to explain what a walled garden is to our board members?
When we speak about AI, the walled garden means that the prompts that we provide to certain AI tools, where they're part of a suite of products we already own and have privacy agreements for, those prompts won't be put out there into the AI models for the rest of the world to potentially see or have data built upon that's provided to others, so that walled garden keeps district data within the district, keeps individuals' data with the individual who is prompting and seeking a response from AI, and protects the privacy of data that is input into an AI tool.
All right, thank you, Greg.
So this
What
is
happened there?
we hiccuped. So this is a timeline starting with in the fall. Actually, last spring, I started doing some training, went to conferences over the summer, learned a lot, came here to the district and said, this is what I've learned, and we just keep building from there. So opening day, I got to talk to the 9 through 12 staff, loved that. And we formed a group that's called the AI Champions, and that group, it helps me because I'm not in a high school regularly. I'm in an elementary school, so I needed their feedback to know what's actually happening. And so they have been valuable help for me. Foundational AI PD was offered to all staff, and just how Gemini is used, and and we're continuing that. In December, we passed the policy, the regulation, and then there's been communication to staff and teachers and staff, and there's more PD coming, and that number 6, where it says listen to stakeholders, I think that should be bold or bigger or something like that, because where we're at right now is we need to just hear from the people and learn from, I know that there was public comment at a school board meeting not too long ago, and it's important for us to learn exactly how people are feeling about it, and every little step that we take and in learning about AI, and that's at every level, can help us to support each other and just grow in our learning. And so listening to stakeholders is really important. So the next slide is about what's coming up next. Our students, at the end of the first semester and the beginning of the second semester, students in 9 through 12 had 3 or 4 lessons that had to do with what AI is, and AI literacy, and getting to know how AI impacts, and just had some discussions with teaching staff.
I'm going to talk a little bit about that. We targeted certain courses that we had students in. So our Skills for Success class, we did the end of first semester and the beginning of second semester, because we know that all 9th graders are in that class. We did computer science for 10th grade. We did college and career life readiness in 11th grade. And then I can't remember.
American government.
American government as for our seniors. So we targeted certain classes, and we brought those teachers in to have conversation with them, to get their stakeholder input onto what would be reasonable for sharing in their classes, knowing that, they have their own standards and lessons that they're trying to teach, but also how can we incorporate this into it. And so that was something that you and Julie had done, brought them all in, and we settled on these 3 lessons that we're going to push out, knowing that we're going to have to continue to push out more things as we go, but that was like the very, very beginning introduction.
Then there's information for parents and community that will be coming out soon, that just tells our community and our parents how we're approaching AI use, and just kind of where we're at in our learning. And then at the end of this month, toward the end of this month, our students will have Gemini access. After everyone has had their introduction, they will have Gemini access, and then just after that, on March 2nd, teachers will come to learn about the common language that we've talked to different departments about common language, and that's on the next slide, I think. And we will be implementing opportunities for students to use AI in their classrooms.
So I don't think we actually have the tool in our presentation.
Okay.
So if you want to just kind of give the 5 buckets.
Sure. Do you have it?
I can find it for you.
I'm not logged in.
You're not logged in. I can
So,
find it for you.
as far as common language goes, what I was looking for, what we had kind of planned is a poster that has different kinds of assignments. So a writing assignment, a project, an assignment that is a project, something that is building understanding, planning and organization, and creativity. And under that, it's different ways that you could use AI to complete that project, let's say. So you might have brainstorming, planning, doing research, creating a product. You could use AI to get feedback, to develop a speech or discussion, or to create slides. And the teacher, when they're presenting this assignment to students, will say, okay, you can use this, let's, as a group, use this for brainstorming, use AI for brainstorming for this project. You can use it for planning your project. You may not
you can use it for research for your project, but you may not use it for creation because I'm grading you on your creation of whatever the product is. And so you cannot use AI for that, but all that stuff leading up to it, use it as an assistant to build that knowledge. Then you create your assignment. You cannot use it for feedback. You cannot use it to write your speech or discussion. You cannot use it for slide creation. So on the chart, it actually has check boxes, and the teacher can say yes, 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 no, 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 and no, because that's what they're grading, and that would not be some way to use AI. So in the category of creativity, I talked to art teachers and music teachers about how do you see AI being used? And the same kinds of things would be in that category. And the teacher has full autonomy to say yes, no, no, or no, no, and no. There is no AI on this assignment, and at the bottom of the poster, on the bottom of this document, I'm going to read it exactly what it says. It says, students are responsible for ensuring that all work reflects their own thinking, learning, and creativity. If unsure, students should ask for clarification before using any AI tool. Students may not use artificial intelligence tools unless the teacher has given explicit permission and AI-generated content is properly cited when applicable. And this part is bold. Misuse of AI is a form of academic dishonesty and may result in consequences.
You can't really see it too well, but I'm just gonna so you can see, we're gonna make big posters of this for every single classroom that has this image on the top.
And I'm not sure that this will happen, but that statement at the bottom, no, I'm going to say that this should happen. The statement on the bottom that I read to you should be in their Canvas assignment. It should be part of their syllabus. It should be part of their assignments. That's common language, very clear for students. And that's what I'd like to see. Let's see what our next one is. Okay, so considering stakeholder input. These are the steps that we're going to take so that we can continuously improve our product, our plan, the way that we do things. And like I mentioned before, I'm not in a high school, so I need to hear from the people. One of the things that we have planned is feedback survey, using thought exchange.
That's what we were doing in the back, since I don't get to see Cindy very often. We were actually creating our survey together tonight.
And students can give us information about what AI they've used and what they haven't, or if they haven't. What environmental impact issues do you want to bring to the forefront? What other issues do you have, and what do you need to be able to do this successfully, and prepare you for what comes next?
Thank you.
And you'll also notice, we did say that Google Gemini was used to enhance the appearance of all of these slides. So we did use Gemini in the creation of our AI presentation.
And this is how you cite your source.
Yes, we're citing our source right now. Any questions?
Yes, Member Sadowski.
I have a few thoughts, I guess, comments. First of all, I just wanted to thank you, Cindy, for I know you just do a fabulous job of going to a lot of trainings, and over the last 4 years, you've really educated the board on a lot of different things. So I really appreciate that. I know we've been in hard budget times, and so, but what I'm seeing right now is just like you're a media specialist, and how important that is and could be with all of this too, as an extra added support for our teachers. So just thank you for your work and for being here. So I wanted to say that because I know this is a very, it's here, our students are using it already. I also know that students have concerns, which they've shared at the board table, about the environmental impacts. I just did a little Google search because I have to admit I was a little skeptical. I was like, well, Gemini must be more environmentally friendly. So I did just a little Google search, and it says it is by about 30%. Let's see here. I thought that was interesting. Gemini is more efficient per query, often cited as consuming 30% less energy than ChatGPT. I just found that to be interesting. I still know that there's a lot of significant environmental impacts, and it's here. I know this train has probably kind of left the station, but when I'm looking at this timeline, some of it just is a little bit problematic to me. Like we're launching it with students on February 23rd, but then we're talking on March 2nd about common language. It just, with staff, it's been here. So ChatGPT has, or, AI has been here, and we know some students are using it, and we know some students aren't using it. I don't personally understand the hurry to open it up to students on February 23rd if we're not developing a common language with staff and teachers prior to that. So I'm just trying to kind of wrap my head around that. Maybe you can
Can I
comment on
clarify
that.
one thing?
And then
They've seen the common language at the August, so they already had gotten trained on the common language way back in August, the teachers did. What they're going to be talking about on March 2nd is more about like, how could we implement this in front of our classrooms? Like, more about that implementation part of it. We have no expectations set on teachers regarding their use of AI at all. So they need to kind of talk through some of those things in their departments.
Yeah, I would continue to push back on it a little bit, though, because teachers, if they're going to be talking about, like, how do we educate the students about this shared language, I think that it still would make sense to do that before launching it, just from my perspective anyway. And then when we look at considering stakeholder input, I really appreciated that. I think, Cindy, you mentioned the public comment that we had last month. I really appreciated that public comment. Someone handed a whole packet of really good articles from The Atlantic and other sources that I've started to read. I admit I haven't read all of them, but I've read a couple of them. And so just thinking about how will this support all of our students holistically, I guess. So when I look at considering stakeholder input, I feel like our community maybe they heard about it, but maybe they haven't had a chance to weigh in as much either. So maybe just giving a little more opportunity for that. Because there's a lot of really educated people in our community who maybe have some information for us. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll call on, I'm not sure who's next, so, okay, I'll go to Member Meixel.
Thank you so much for being here tonight. I'm curious, based on the public comment that we have received, has there been any updates or adaptations to the current plan based on what we've heard thus far?
No, but there is a plan to meet with the two professors from UMD, and both of whom I know from the past. So there is a plan to meet with them and get their input and learn from them. They are certainly stakeholders within our community that we can learn from.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear that. And then also just curious, and perhaps this is getting a bit too much in the weeds, but if we are going to have explicit instructions of when AI can be used and when it shouldn't be used, do we have ways to determine if AI has been used in the areas of the assignment that was marked that it should not be used in? How are your teachers able to check and see if that's the case?
Two ways. Number one, student relationship with the students, teacher relationship with the students, and knowing who they are and what they are capable of doing. That's one thing. And number two, on that professional development day on March 2nd, we will be talking with each department about, part of their presentation has to do with adjusting your assignment to more discussion,
less work outside of school, which changes the pedagogy of how things are taught. But in order to AI-proof our assessments, I think that's an important way for us to do that. And so they'll be trained on, teachers will be trained on just making some changes about how their assessments actually happen.
Last question, just a little bit off of Member Sadowski, her concern of the rollout and the timing of the steps and stages. Is there a reason why February 23rd is the hard launch? And that's prior to the next PD day? Do we have to do it on that day for a certain reason?
That is our plan, but I'll speak to the team who has been intimate in terms of the timeline. So does someone want to share the why?
In September, when we looked at the calendar and just planned out how things were going to go, we wanted it to be we wanted teachers to have opportunity to do the training that they did in December, also on January 2nd. Give the first semester and second semester targeted teachers an opportunity to do that teaching and get feedback from them, then release it to students or open it up for students. Give a little bit of opportunity for students to see what it does. I don't know that students have used any AI outside of school. And so we picked February 23rd, right after winter break. We picked that date in September.
And I appreciate the question mark related to the timeline because, again, I know the team has been working on this a little bit since the summer and coming back, just ongoing, just the evolution of it to this point, knowing that the goal has always been, one, let's make sure that if there's unreadiness that we, consider that before we fully move forward. And also with any implementation, at some point, we start and then we have to adjust along the way. The team felt they were ready to move forward with rolling out the students. One of the things I asked is how we made sure that, one, teachers are fully aware of the rollout and has received professional development. The answer is yes. Have parents receive initial communication related to the possibility that this is going to roll out? The answer is yes. Well, how can we make sure parents get additional information? And the answer is yes, yes. There's there are letters and there is communication that's going to go out to families even prior to the rollout again on the 23rd. And then, of course, related to our students, how are students made aware and what are we doing to make sure our students are prepared? And the team has done a good job of determining when students will receive some instruction and direction on the proper usage of AI. And with all of that being, considered prior to the rollout, we feel comfortable moving forward unless there's some true unreadiness, like is being articulated now. So we're going to take all the feedback and consider it. But right now, that's the timeline.
Greg's hand went up.
But before that, before I call on who's coming in, I want to call on our student representative who's been patient, and then I'll call on who's ever here.
Okay. Hi.
Hi.
So being a high school student, I have obviously seen the impacts of AI through my friends, and I've heard about some impacts from my teachers as well. I know just last year in my computer science class, we had a whole lesson that lasted about 2 weeks just about AI. We learned about to not use it because of its impacts. I know that, of course, it can be a tool for some certain things, but at the same time, it does cause a lot of miscommunication between students and teachers aren't necessarily seeing when students are using AI, and I know some people that have definitely turned things in using AI and teachers don't catch it, and they can still get a higher grade compared to other students that are using their own work and their own thinking for certain assignments. I think it's kind of hard when you have those classes, like computer science last year, talking about how we should not use AI, and then go right into it this year talking about, oh yeah, we're going to implement this into our Chromebooks, and this is Google Gemini. I just think that it's a really quick it's a really quick thing to happen after we just had those talks last year. And I know that AI is going to be around for a long time. I know that's something that people are working on. I don't think it's going to go away for a very long time. So I don't know if there's any way we can maybe think about the possible other solutions that we can do. It just seems super fast to do this on February 23rd, I think was the date, just to implement that when we've already had those conversations so recent about how AI is not treated very well. And I know I've had certain conversations with my teachers about that as well. And I know you mentioned something about how we'd have to really tell people when you can and when you cannot use AI, but I know what it's like being in high school, and I know there are some people that are going to just use AI no matter what anyone says. Teachers will tell you not to use AI, and they still will, and that's unfortunate, but it's the truth. And I just don't think that if we implement Google Gemini, it'll help. I don't think that it'll really stop students from using ChatGPT at the same rate. And I know people are using AI outside of school. I know that they're using it in school. They're using it on their phones. They're using it on the computer because we already do have AI mode on Google. And I just think it's a hard conversation to talk about when it's a hard thing to implement right now when we already have all of these certain conversations we've had with so many teachers, and the fact that there are students still using AI, I just think that this might encourage others to use it even more than they already have been. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Superintendent Magus, and then I'll come over to our other student representative.
Thank you. No, I think there are a lot of good points being made, and I just wanted to reiterate, and I'm sorry because it's been difficult with driving to be able to enter into other comments on the other topics, but I just wanted to say I have done a couple of polls of both the metro districts and some of the regional districts, and I would say the majority of districts that were polled are using AI with their students and that they are having access. And I agree, we want to be very thoughtful about it, but we also want to think about it as an issue of if some people are using it and we don't know it, or some people are not using it, I think at least having a common playing field where it can be coached and we can guide people about appropriate use and inappropriate use is better than having people just pulling it up on their phones and cutting and pasting ChatGPT into documents anyway. So that's part of just what I wanted to say, but I realize it's a complex issue, and I'm weighing in from afar.
Hi. I just wanted to kind of agree with what Madeline said. I think my biggest thing or my biggest comment about it, I think it would just produce more of a chance of academic dishonesty, because I already know, even like what she said, like even if there's teachers saying that you can't use it, there's still going to be people that do use it anyways. And I think even now there's teachers that say that we can't use it and we still use it. I think it would just be a hard thing to kind of put walls on and restrictions. And even now, like teachers say, like they're able to catch you with it and stuff, but like most of the time they aren't. I think even with the teachings, I mean, it's kind of hard to say, but it might not, it might really not change it much. And like, I think it would open doors for a lot more of like that dishonesty part. And, but I think I also kind of agree with what Magus was saying, because I think it would also even the playing field a little bit, but like I said, it would still be kind of hard to differentiate when it should be used and if it is being used. So yeah, that's probably.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And that's why I had asked Ms. Brown to put back on the screen the why it's important, because again, we've been really thoughtful and thinking through why we are doing this and why we're rolling it out. And so just wanted to remind everyone of those whys. And it's exactly what you were sharing in terms of, we know that AI is being used right now by a lot of people, self-included. It's in every industry that's out there is looking for ways to leverage AI to its fullest. So we really believe it's important to make sure that we are preparing our students to leverage AI in the proper ways and to educate them on the misuse and what happens when you misuse AI. And so we really are, as an educational institution, we believe we have to make sure we prepare students properly and let them know all of those challenges. But we are listening. We are going to take all the feedback that we are receiving today and take it under consideration as we move forward. Member Lafleur-Kemp and then Member Sadowski.
Great, thank you, and thank you for having the students speak. If you would have called on me first, I would have said, have the students speak before us board members, so thank you for that. I guess I agree with a lot that has been said, particularly by Member Sadowski and Member Michael. I'm concerned, and again, I know a lot of work has been gone into this timeline, the policy that we passed a few months ago in the policy committee and had a lot of discussion around as well. But I guess if I were to raise up some of the concerns that have been expressed already, it would be the timeline, and particularly the March 2nd PD Day and the student launch. I'm still trying to grapple with that on what makes sense. And then also, I just wanted to share, we did have a lot of public comment, and particularly, again, the professors that were here from UMD and the packet. I've been going through that information as well and learning a lot from it, and I think they're very credible sources that he presented and gave to us, so I really appreciated that. And then I guess I would want all of the staff at the high school level, especially to be at a high level of comfort with this. So there's consistency in how the language that's being used and how they're using it and all of that. So I just have, I guess, grave concerns on that. And then lastly, more from a policy perspective, do we need to, and this is Assistant Superintendent, in our student handbook, do we need to update the handbook for the March through June, the rest of this year, around our policy on this and on academic dishonesty, and what, is there a policy piece that goes with the handbook that we need to make sure is updated as well?
So the academic dishonesty piece is already, we just have academic dishonesty in our handbook, but we will be adding like the common language pieces and all of those to the next year's handbook.
Right, and then I just, again, as policy chair, am wondering if it needs to be added, because we're rolling this out February 23rd. We still have a couple months left of the school year. And just from a policy perspective, and if I were a parent, I'd want it in a handbook if I knew my student was being held accountable for something. And so I guess, to me, that would seem to be something we need to put some thought into.
Agreed.
Yeah, updating the handbook, not just waiting till next year.
If I could respond to that question just for a moment, I do know that from meetings that I've had recently that there's also a new MSBA policy that's just being completed that should be coming out in the next couple of weeks. In fact, I can check on it when I meet with folks here tomorrow in the cities. But I do know that they have a revised and updated policy. Our policy that we have is fine for now, but I think it's also good for us to see what the new policy has to say.
Yes, I agree, Superintendent, and I knew that was coming out, and I am glad that we were forward thinking with the policy and the work that you did, Cindy, and making sure it was brought to the policy committee before this rollout. But I still want to make sure, from the parent handbook perspective, that we have it incorporated for this year and not wait till next year. And for parents who are sitting at this table, maybe you could add your opinion on that, parent school board members.
Chair?
I'm going to offer a little bit different of a perspective. And I actually think when you sit down and meet with the UMD professors, they probably have a little bit to learn from you all because per usual, higher education is not doing what they need to do to embrace AI, and our students are using it constantly. And I think one piece that maybe I would just want to lift up is, I don't remember which one of you said it, but this is going to have to cause a change in assignments that teachers put forward. I think that AI is just another tool in education being viewed the same way as it was when Google showed up, when encyclopedias showed up, and when the printing press showed up. So granted, it's not the same thing, but it's another tool to be used. Students and education continually improve and change and look different, and this is just another way that education is going to look very different. I also want to lift up the common language, because I think where higher education and where I've seen my colleagues fall down is they're not specific enough when they're giving assignments to students to say, this is what's going to be acceptable, this is what's not going to be acceptable. And there is ways to figure out if students use AI. We do it all the time. It's just like the AI tool is developed, there's tools to develop to figure out AI because of the little things that are left in the assignment. So I'm comfortable, I don't have a problem with the timeline. I know that teachers have been working on this. Teachers, per usual, are going to have very different opinions as to whether or not they want to use this and as to whether or not they want to check their assignments for AI. And that's going to be at the discretion of the teacher. So I appreciate the fact that you're putting a universal approach and a universal design around how AI is going to be used in the Duluth Public Schools. And I'm going to give you the appreciation of many, many, many college professors once these kids figure out how to use it correctly and how to use it to bolster and lift up their academics versus just use it as a crutch. And I think it is easy, not easy, it will take some creative pedagogy for teachers to figure out how to go around, because students are constantly trying to figure out how to get in a back door, and it doesn't matter if it's AI and it doesn't matter if it's, so I just want to say that I'm appreciative of this and I'm comfortable with what you've put forward, also knowing that you're constantly going to be looking back at the continuous improvement. So thank you for this presentation.
Member Sadowski?
Yeah, I would completely agree that this is one of those tools that has come along, and that in the past, if you look at historically, like how the internet was looked at and all the other examples you gave. So I just wanted to clarify, I mean, I'm not opposed to this eventually, or like when you decide it happens, but I still have an issue a little bit with the timeline. And I had a follow-up question. I guess it would follow up to your comment, Member Lafleur-Kemp, like, yeah, as a parent, I would like to see at least an addendum to a policy handbook or something, just some really good communication around what that looked like. So just wearing my parent hat. And then also just, you know, maybe communication around like how, so I know, how can my kid use, and I guess that's what the handbook would do, or the student handbook, but I would want to know how can my student use AI and how can't they? Although my student doesn't like to use AI anyway because of the environmental impacts. I was also wondering with the staff development, because I'm hearing from our student school board reps that identification, and Member Eder, you mentioned it too, there are ways to identify if someone has used AI. I'll admit that I'm not very skilled in that, and I'm hearing from our student school board reps that maybe teachers need some education in that too. So I'm wondering what kind of staff development they've gotten around that, just as a follow-up.
So we started first day, opening day, just talking about AI. Then in December, and throughout the fall semester, teachers had access to Gemini training that would teach them just like an intro to how to write a good prompt and how to use AI for productivity. And most of our teaching staff participated, even our elementary teachers, in that Gemini training. Once they had completed the Gemini training, they had access to Gemini tools on their computers, and then I may or may not have sent thousands of emails to people and said, hey, try this. And not just our teaching staff, but our social workers, our counselors, our paraprofessionals, and it's only getting, we're only developing more. So we had our professional development day January 2nd, asynchronous. There were offerings there that were about AI and the full impact of how AI might change education altogether. And then we didn't have a day in February yet, no. March 2nd is our next day, and every department in every area that Annie Schilling puts together for us, everyone has a chunk of AI. Everyone 6 through 12, and in every other department has an opportunity, will have a discussion about AI within their department. So all the science teachers, 6 through 12, will be together. And I will point them to, this is how science teachers can use AI to differentiate instruction, to assess, provide feedback, all kinds of ways, how to change the way that you're assigning and collecting your data from your students. And each of those groups will have that training on that day.
So I'm hearing you say not only how we're teaching, supporting our teachers with the usage of AI and how it can be incorporated successfully in the classroom, but I also heard the ask maybe is how are we giving teachers strategies on how to identify when AI is being used, or strategies to notice if students are plagiarizing using AI. Is that
That's
what
correct.
you were asking?
Yes, but I do appreciate just knowing all of that too, because I think that's good to recognize that. Just like many of us at this table, many of our teachers probably have different skill sets in using AI, like crafting the prompts and just different things like that. So it sounds like it's a really good start to educating our teachers. But yeah, I do have that follow-up question. I feel like there's a lot of, to make it as successful as possible, as much prep. So yeah, I'm just wondering, like, how are teachers being trained to identify, when a student is using AI?
Right.
Yeah.
Also, we're doing training with business services and everyone who works in this building, and facilities, and technology department, and transportation. We're bringing those people in because there are ways that they can use AI to improve whatever it is that they do. That'll be an interesting group. And then also principals, and how principals can use AI to plan their evaluations or their schedules or all these different things that they can use those tools for that are specific for school leaders. So I think that we've got our fingers into a lot of different things. And hopefully, like I said, every little bit that we learn, we can use to support and grow.
Can you speak to the public transparency? You mentioned it on here, but I don't think I heard it discussed in full here in terms of the public transparency with the one-pager and FAQ that's going to be developed.
So messaging we had put together and shared with families earlier on in the year. And another is waiting to go until after our presentation here tonight. We were hoping to have sent it out last month, but we held off so that we could have some conversations with you as well. And we've talked about putting together an FAQ that we could share with teachers and families just regarding stuff. And I know you have a lot of presentations that you're currently working on to get places in front of different groups. A lot of it is based off some of the same stuff that you're seeing tonight. You were basing those off of that, but making sure that we've got that all posted, shared as much as possible.
Yeah, I was just going to say thank you both for being here on a Thursday evening so late.
And Greg, too.
Oh, appreciate it.
Thank you, Greg.
And Greg.
And I appreciate the leadership from Greg and Jen. I certainly couldn't do all of these things on my own. I don't know how this works from my point of view. So I'm happy to give my training support, but without them, it wouldn't be going anywhere. So thank you.
Yep, thank you. And I assure you, board and community, that the team and I will be going back and taking into account things that have been shared here and things for us to consider. And I just want to say thank you to the team. Oh,
Can I
Member
just add
Laughlin,
one
Kim?
thing? I just wanted to mention, all of us board members did attend our School Board Association training conference a couple weeks ago, and there were a number of workshops that were, had implications around AI and information. And so, I know that the questions we're asking are questions school boards across the state were asking and wanting to, work to be more educated on as we were moving forward. And again, as other school boards obviously are also moving forward. So I guess, share that as part of our training.
The last slide has some resources for school board too.
Superintendent Magus?
Yes, and I apologize just because I'm trying to ascertain like the will of the board on this at this point, and just sort of like the governance concerns of the board, like is, I'm hearing a variety of thoughts, some concerns. Is there a desire from the board I'm trying to ascertain the will of the board at this point, because sometimes I think when that's unclear, is there clarity that the board is okay with the administration moving forward to consider implementation, or is there will of the board that we pause? And then what governance questions do you want addressed? So, just basically seeking some more clarification there.
Well, I would just add that we have 2 board members missing. Member Lofald had to leave, and Member Banks is excused this evening. So I just wanted to point that out. So just for me, I would hope that you would take some time just to consider the comments that were made, and take that into your professional opinion and the holistic 360 view that you all have as professionals implementing it. So that's, and the comments from our student school board reps. So that's just speaking for me.
Thank you. Member Williams?
Yeah, I have to run in a moment too, so I appreciate your acknowledgement that we're not all here to have this conversation, and I'm sure it might continue as I run out. But multiple people, I guess, have brought up the timeline concern, and yeah, that February 23rd date is just so soon. And I agree, the rollout versus the PD day seems, I don't know, it seems a little cart before the horse to me. But yeah, that's what I've got.
Member Meixel?
When I come into this work, I do it with the goal of trying to help everyone succeed in the best ways possible. And so if having professional development prior to a rollout allows our staff to have a little bit extra skill set, a little bit extra comfort, that's something that I feel like should happen prior to the rollout with students. But at the same time, I recognize that I'm a nurse that doesn't do this work every day. And I don't have advanced degrees in media specialty and computer science and in education of our students. So with this input, I am trusting that our administration and our district leaders will make the choice that they feel is best for the resources that we have and for our students.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just say probably like the biggest thing I think with most of us from what I've heard is just probably the timeline. And I think in order for this thing to be super successful, I think our teachers should be as prepared as possible. Obviously, they've had stuff, meetings before the enrollment. But I think just an extra day right before the enrollment would probably make the most sense, I think. But again, what Mixel said, I trust you guys' judgment on this. You guys did a good thing with this, and you guys definitely put a lot of time and effort into it. But I think just rethinking the enrollment date would probably be like a good idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Loeffler-Kemp?
Yeah, I guess if you're getting a pulse of the board, I agree with what's been said already. One is we're missing 2 members, now 3. And then thirdly, or secondly, I guess, you know, I do trust your expertise and judgment, and your heads have been around this a lot longer than ours has in thinking it through. But it does feel like, you know, the timeline piece is something, if you were to kind of rethink, would be the one I would kind of raise. But again, not all board members are here.
Thank you, and I do appreciate that feedback, and again, we will take everything that's said into consideration as we move forward with everything. I just want to point out that we had initially planned to roll it out about a month ago, and we had feedback and we adjusted, and so I want to say again that exemplifies that we will take things seriously and consider what is being communicated and make some decisions around. So we appreciate the feedback, and we will be in communication. Thank you. Next up, we have our final presentation for today. Director Crane and Assistant Director Thurston, they will be providing an update related to special education. And one of the reasons as they're coming up that we really wanted to have this conversation, just to provide a status update, is the fact that there's a lot of questions and concerns that have been raised over the last few months related to meeting the needs of students with special needs. You know, not only the amount of support that many of the students need and the amount of programming that our students need, and then also the budgetary impact. And so we just thought it would be beneficial for us to start sharing some initial information with the board and the community on the things that we are doing to meet the needs of our students with special needs, to provide that status update. And so Director Crane is here. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Bonds, for setting that up so well. My partner here, Laura, tells me that sometimes in the afternoon I get punky, and I want to start with a joke that none of our presentation was created with AI. But we did have a wonderful team of experts, including Laura, our business manager, our supervisor team, that you'll see their names in just a second. But it is true, this presentation was created to just provide some information, provide some details, provide some facts, provide some information of how it correlates to the impact on our budget as well. So all those things in mind. So we know that our presentation will likely trigger other questions, many questions, and likely you'll want us to come back to talk about some more details that we're going to surface today. We're more than willing to come back. So let's go to the second slide, and I brought an artifact with you. I am a 32 plus, I'm into my 32nd year with Duluth Public Schools, 16 years as a special education director, 5 of those were as an assistant director. And when I started in '93, this was an example of the resource manual that all special education teachers got. And you won't see these around the district very much anymore. This is called our thesis manual. And our thesis manual right now is electronic. Anyone can find that on our district website. And this, up on the first slide, comes out of the thesis manual. Rules and regulations, this is a code of federal regulation, that's what CFR stands for, has changed over the years, but this one back in my manual right now, some of the quotes up there, the purpose of any public school is to ensure that students with disabilities have a free, appropriate public education. and that statute hasn't changed since I first received this manual. It is designed, meant to provide specialized instruction that we can adapt the instructional needs to the appropriate needs of the eligible child. To the disability, we can adapt the content, the methodology, the environment, and the delivery of instruction. And that's just kind of a grounding. I wanted to start with some information about, we have a set of rules and regulations, and you can see by how thick this manual is, of how it is important to understand all these roles and responsibility. I would declare, and I don't know if Laura, you have the same opinion, that it takes a person, it took me 5 years to really wrap my head around. I was learning every year. I'm still learning today in my job about how we can support all the legislative changes as well as support students in our classroom. The landscape constantly changes. So I just wanted to, if Henry was here, he would say he wanted to borrow this from me, I'm sure, and I will gladly get this to member banks. But this is just a fun little example of the importance of special education. Next slide, Shannon. I want to also say,
Can I ask, so do you know what year, sorry, this is kind of diving deep here, and I was looking, the purpose in that, was that when IDEA was first passed, or was it?
this regulation has been around a long time, and Member Sadowski just joined our PAXI meeting. Maybe we could just lift up an important thing that we're changing in our PAXI process. And Member Sadowski was here. We did this last week. Laura, do you want to take this one? Because it's under your purview that this happened, actually.
I don't recall the exact date. It was on the quiz that we took, though.
No, you don't need to explain that, but just explain the training that we're.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you wanted me to quote the date of the law. No. I was like, wow. No, so PAXI is our Parent Advisory Committee for Special Education, and our charter says that we'll have one meeting a year. And I guess in the past, over time, we've kind of gotten away from that, and we were offering 4 meetings a year. And out of that, the parent committee came to us and said, we'd like to change the format, and we'd like to offer more parent education so that parents can be more informed and be advocates for their children. And so they guided us to some curriculum to purchase, and it comes in modules. I think there are 12 modules. And the first module, of course, lays the legal foundation for special education services. And so we are offering that. And then next month, our topic is early intervention services and the history behind that, when that evolved, and what it means to intervene at an early age. And gradually, it will lead the parents through the training to better understand the process, how an IEP is developed, how an evaluation is done, their rights as a parent, their responsibilities as a parent, and then kind of the school district's responsibilities as well. So we're looking forward to that. The information was heavy. It was like a college course last week, and I guess I didn't remember the right date of IDEA.
Well, this one's dated 97, this one, but Member Sadowski, any comments about that training that you attended?
Well, you actually beat me to it, because I was just going to lift both of you up too, that the parents requested that and you accommodated. And yeah, it was a lot of information, very robust. There was a packet that we would fill out as we learned the information, and it kept me on my toes. The hour went by really quick because I was intent on filling in every blank. But the parents seem to really appreciate that and get a lot out of it as well.
So another charge that we have is to try to maintain our presentation to a shorter time frame. I've never in my 16 years been able to maintain a short time frame because of the rich questions that blossom throughout the presentation. But we have an expectation to be on task and stay on point here. So budgetary guidance from MDE, we sent this to you over a week ago, so we don't necessarily need to read every single slide, but special education appropriations are based upon the perception that we have excess costs for special education, and we do. In theory, we often talk about 55 to 60% of state special education funding covers it, and the rest of it comes from the gen ed resources within the district, and that's for all school districts. So you will see throughout the presentation the impacts on, because we've had to hire more staff, because we have more students qualified for IEP services, how that impacts our special education budget. So Shannon, next slide.
Member Lafleur-Kemp, your light is on, just wanted to make sure. Okay.
I want to start with our special services support team. You have them listed here. We thought it was important to just kind of recognize our team of people, and all of these people helped put this presentation together today. You might think that that's a large team. Compared to like-sized district, we're very small compared to like-sized district, and we do a cost comparison yearly to analyze what other people are doing, and we also know that some districts of our like size have double the amount of team members. I think we have an appropriate number, so I'm not complaining in any way, shape, or form. Just wanted to lift it up that our special services support team is not excessive. Laura, any comments there?
No, I'd like to just highlight that you'll see later that we have to cover 20-some different disability areas, and so it requires a team that has different areas of expertise in order to cover all those disability areas. So if you see Catherine Hatfield, for instance, she supports setting 3, but you'll go back up and you'll see Julie Venus supports assistive technology, and surrogacy. So those are some areas where they have a special expertise that is essential to what we do in our work. Likewise, Becky Crane, her specialty is early childhood education. So each person on here has a specific role. They can blend over and support each other, but really we depend on them to work in their area of specialty and to support our students and staff in their area of expertise.
And just to put some numbers by Catherine, for example, setting 3 programs are DCD, ASD programming, and we have 36 programs that she helps support. So some of those programs have 6 kids in there, but some of them have as many as 12 students in there. So that's a lot of IEPs that she's going to, a lot of staff. Oftentimes in our setting 3 programs, it's our newest employees because some of those jobs are hard to fill. So she's doing a lot of legwork for a lot of people around the whole district. Next slide, Shannon. Okay, I didn't open up the slides while I was listening to all the other presentations tonight, but we have a lot of reporting that we have to do to the state of Minnesota. And this is just one thing that highlights the one that I've underlined there, a data indicator, that we do get a memo back from the state of Minnesota related to disproportionate rates of suspension. The other indicators, we are not getting an indicator back from state of Minnesota that we have a over disproportionate area in those categories, which has to do with sometimes even our early childhood students. But it's important to highlight that this is one of our department projects to really focus on suspension rates, lowering suspension rates. And yes, we have received a memo related to please improve your disproportionate rates of suspension, especially for students of color. Janet? By all means, we're going to take questions after, so feel free to write your questions down. This is just a slide that we built to kind of say what's happening around the district. And Laura, remind each other here now to explain the acronyms as when we get to ADSIS and things like that. So maybe you want to talk about some of those elementary projects that you see up top.
ADSIS is a grant in which the district participates. It funds 6 teachers to support students in intervention services, and it's odd that it's within special services because it's intended to be a pre-intervention for students being referred for special education services. But our department supports the grant, and right now, in fact, in the middle of writing the progress report for it. And these individuals are serving students at our schools that don't have as many resources as other schools. So Congdon, Homecroft, Lakewood, and Leicester receive additional support through the ADSIS grant for intervention services for students.
The second bullet point talks about suspension projects, and the CEIS stands for Coordinated Early Intervening Services. We pay for 6 staff members, and 2 at Denfeld, 2 at Lincoln, and 2 at Myers-Wilkins have programs under their purview that solely are designed to keep kids from being suspended. So when they have a difficult, challenging behavior situation, they can tap into the CEIS program, and they're not being sent home, they're being educated. And that's oftentimes what MDE tells us is we really like to see kids stay in school, safest place for them to be, get education around there, problems that happen in the school setting, but don't use suspension as a major tool to keep kids out of school. And that's what those CEIS dollars are used for. The reason for those schools is it's our highest rate of disproportional students being suspended. And across the district, I can just lift up and celebrate that our suspension rates have radically improved. And some of the practices that were used a few years ago, like automatically going to the student handbook and what does it say? It says 5-day suspension. Our administrators are making far different choices in today's world. And I don't really see a 5-day suspension very much anymore in the school district. It's oftentimes a 1-day suspension. Let's get the kid back in as quickly as we can, set a new plan for the kid and get rocking and rolling so the kid can get back to class. And I hope my student reps actually comment on, maybe you're seeing some of that too, maybe not. Special services support that we provide from our leadership team. We do mentorship. We do a tremendous amount of due process trainings. Even though some of those are low attended, some of our training opportunities happen at 4:30 in the afternoon. Sometimes we get around 15 people there. We still host those meetings even if we have small attendance. Evaluations, tell me what, we do staff evaluations, a tremendous amount. Our whole team is involved with staff evaluations, and we're seeing a lot of good things by being more invested. We had a expansion to our supervision team, our supervisors, and they're becoming invested in evaluating teachers as well. And we're seeing some increased response of compliance with on-time paperwork, making a difference for kids, that they understand how to write their goals and objectives better, and we're seeing some outcome differences in the kids too because of that project. Lastly, staff development, science and reading. Laura and her team do a lot with organizing our staff development, but we're doing things targeted to train teachers on the science of reading. And also our non-certified staff are getting that same component. Letters has been a part of it, but we're expanding to new opportunities for staff, maybe through some new products. Go ahead, Laura.
Right, as part of the original READ Act, it was mandated that paraprofessionals also receive literacy training. That was quickly, the state decided that they didn't have the right product or the right training determined or identified to support our non-certified staff, and so they put it off for a couple of years, and I guess about July this year, they came out with the training. Actually, it was June or July, and it is a state-developed training, and there are 3 or 4 from our department, plus Gretchen Karg, who is our literacy lead for the district, who went to the training, and then we, this year, have had to turn around that training with all of our non-certified staff to ensure compliance with the statute. So that's been a big lift this year, and it'll continue to be a lift through the rest of this year.
I'm so pleased with the decision to have our district calendar have a lot more PD opportunities. That puts a lot of work on our team, but we like that work. We want people to be trained. Our non-certified group is an example where they used to basically get 1 day of PD trainings, and now they get 7. So that's awesome. Shannon, next slide. All right, here we go with some data now, and this is probably going to generate some questions, but if we can just get through the next 3 slides, I think it is, then we'll start targeted some conversations about what your questions are around the data. So as I said, I've been a director for 16 years. I remember a day, FY14, where our total numbers of special education students, and it hovered for several years around 1,400. So it was even lower than FY20, and that was a pretty common number to see total IEPs in the district, around 1,400 students. And you'll see how much it's grown over the years. Well, part of that had to do with our pandemic. It had kids that needed more help after the pandemic. A lot of kids stayed home. They didn't have appropriate role models. They didn't have appropriate speech examples during the pandemic. So our numbers have grown. Every district's numbers have grown. We're doing a lot back with that MTSS and all of our things that we're trying to really help educators learn how to teach kids better. And some of those are tier 1 and 2 supports that hopefully we can see this turn around in the near future and not continue to grow. Brief comments on that. Laura, anything else to add? Let's go to some more slides and come back if you have questions about why we've grown. This is our staffing, which is obviously a correlation to when the kid numbers go up, our staff numbers go up. And you can see how much we've grown with staff, which correlates to our special education budget has increased, because if we're having nearly almost 100 more staff members, That's a lot of thousands of dollars of special education spending that doesn't all get reimbursed by that formula that I talked about before. We only get about 55 to 60% back. All right, and we're coming to the end here, I think. What has impacted our budget? Our Duluth Schools has a robust, powerful system that draws families into our area. They move to this district. We actually have a lot of students that live near our district that say, we want to come to Duluth Schools because we think you have more than my homeschool district does. So we have a lot of open enrollment students that come to Duluth Schools and want their services from Duluth Schools. And some of those students that have come back to the district most recently come from some of our schools that are in our boundary areas. And I won't name the schools, but if you could think about some of the schools that are in our boundary areas that aren't necessarily Duluth Public Schools, we have about 21, 22 school buildings here, but a few of them are in our backyard. And most recently, some of their more complex students all came to Duluth Schools. Part of it had to do with we hired a bunch of their teachers and support staff. So they wanted to come to Duluth School knowing that they could follow their teacher. So we had very, very complex kids enroll in the last few years that needed very intense supports as well. So that's more expensive. Staffing, you want to take over some of these, Laura?
Well, I just want to add that the health and family services that the city of Duluth provides is also a huge draw for families with students with complex needs. And so because the city of Duluth can support the needs of these families, they move here for those social and medical supports and enroll in our schools. Likewise, there are a lot of group homes that are here because of the needed supports. And so Duluth ISD, receives all of those students. And they are the ones, as Jason said, with the more challenging needs.
So the staffing crisis refers to, in our special ed services department, we have 29 unique licensure areas to support students with IEPs. And some of those are hard to find positions. One of our employees right now lives in the state of New York. One of our deaf, hard of hearing teachers gives us remote service, but it's because we couldn't find somebody in person. Would we prefer to have an in-person provider? Absolutely. But we posted it for over 4 months each summer for the last couple of years. And we have a wonderful online service provider that is helping us out with that staffing shortage. We have other examples of that as well. Just tough to fill positions. Nurses are always tough to fill. Nurses are in the special education purview. Some of our setting 3 teachers are hard to fill positions. So when we get them filled is when all of the concerns get handled, so to speak. When we're short staff, then we have high concerns and a lot of complaints around the whole district. Special education funding costs have risen. Some of the legislative changes that keep kids in school till 22, we have more kids staying for longer periods of time. So that some of those changes impact the special services budget. We have a lot of things that are mandated early identification, and it becomes easier to qualify a kid for early childhood services. However, that impacts our budget. When we have more and more kids qualifying, we have more and more kids that need service, we need more staff. And more professional development opportunities, well, that gets expensive because we have, instead of paraprofessionals having just one professional development day, now they have 7. That becomes a cost, which is a great cost, but I just want to lift it up that it is expensive. Shannon, next slide. I think we're done right here. Yeah, okay, so I went a little quickly and not meaning to rush tonight's presentation. I ate at 11:30 this morning, my stomach's rumbling, but I will take questions, I can stay all night. I'm sure you have questions. What's on your mind?
Mayor Maxwell?
Ah, shoot, I was hoping someone, trying to think of what I'm wanting to ask right now. We've been identified by MDE, as you said, for having disproportionate rates of suspension of children with disabilities and having disproportionate identification of racial and ethnic groups needing special education services, like ×2, basically. I assume that there's work being done to get us out of those categories. Is that correct?
Yes, and thank you for asking this question because it reminds me something that I want to lift up. From some of the earlier presentations, I heard questions about some data reviews, and even the APAC committee wanted to hear some data. The Special Services Department collects a lot of data. 3 of our big projects that we really look at quarterly, we used to do it semesterly, but now we do it quarterly. We look at the number of physical holds that have happened across our student population in special education. And we analyze that very carefully to make sure, are the people trained? Do they need more training? What's going on with the kid? Do we need an IEP meeting? So that's why we analyze the physical holds. For all of these things that I'm going to lift up right now, we analyze race, ethnicity, student disability, grade level, male, female. We analyze all those data points as it relates to these projects. So the first one was physical holds. Second, students that are referred for special education initial referrals. We take a close look at that at every one of our school sites to make sure that we're not over-referring, for example, students of color. And we're not in that category. So we're not disproportionate of over-referring students of color, which is great news. And our referrals are down a little bit from previous years. So that's a good, and most of that's kindergarten through 12th grade. But we do look at the extremities too, early childhood and all the way to 22. We don't get many kids referred for evaluations after 18 because we find all those kids before they get done with high school. Third category we look at is suspension rates, and we take a close dive at all of our school settings to see how our suspension rates are impacting race, ethnicity, all those different categories as well. And I'll lift up that, yes, we do have some targeted schools that we're continuing to work with, and the schools respond. I'll try to be as appropriate as I can on camera, being recorded with the news that's left. Anyway, the sites say at times, those are our most challenging students, continuing to display some very aggressive, inappropriate behaviors in the school setting, and they're choosing not to suspend them for 5 days, choosing to only suspend them for 1 or 2 days, and returning them to school, but they have the most incidences of inappropriate actions in the school at some of those school sites that have the disproportionate rates. I tried to say that as politically correctly as possible without outing any schools. I was trying not to target any school categories there.
And also, part of that question was, with those identifications, can you just clarify again how we are responding? Which I know the answer is some of it has to do with professional development training, and that was part of the question. So as we receive the identifications from the state, how are we responding?
So we're providing training too. A couple different opportunities, two separate occasions. Laura and I recorded a legal video that went out to the whole district staff, teachers, administrators, and paraprofessionals. Anthony recruited a legal team to come in and do a presentation with our admin on a professional development day for about an hour or more. And we are, with that data review, going back to the administrator group to say, here's your data, let's take a look at your data. We can talk about each particular kid as well. And we want to problem solve with them to say, can I be at your next IEP meeting for this kid? What can we do to change the kid's schedule, create a better positive behavior support plan? How can we be involved? So that's the things that we do. Lots of training around it though.
Further or follow-up questions then. So I recognize that we have almost 900 more students that have been identified in our special education programs and since before 2020. And so therefore we have much more staff, which is, leading our budgetary issues within that department. Obviously, all of those children need and deserve services. I'm not really hearing a lot about how kids don't need or shouldn't be in special ed. Like they're qualifying for these services. We're obligated to provide them for that. And so I'm trying newly on the HR Business Services Committee, trying to wrap my head around, how do we do this long term? How do we sustain this with our budgets long term, especially when we hear from the state level, like this Blue Ribbon Commission looking at special education funding in our state, which would make me assume that they're wanting us, make further cuts, more globally. how are you as district leaders feeling about that pressure when we know we have students that are needing services and we're in this like budget crunch? Like, what can we be doing to help amplify the voices of your staff and our parents and our students to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our kids?
So you'll see the total, go to the one with the total number of special education employees, Shannon. That's the next one there, right there. 460 employees in the special education. And that's related to FTE. That's probably not total number of people. That's related to FTE. So there's over 500 people that are employed in the special services department. Well-educated department, and I think everybody in our department will say kids need to qualify for services, and when they qualify for services, we provide an opportunity for families to understand that we would like to serve your child and provide interventions. The goal is to graduate off those service plans, and we do have a tremendous amount of kids. Speech is an easy example that many kids quickly receive an intervention in speech. It makes a difference for them, and then the speech path will dismiss the student. That's our largest category of students moving in and out of special education. Post-pandemic, that's the largest number of students that increased as well. But we're seeing a lot of kids that get off of their IEP relatively quickly once they have the service. So I think our department, whether you talk to any one of those 500 employees, will advocate for we're providing the right service for the right kid, and we would like our district, which we are, to hopefully improve Tier 1 and Tier 2 supports so that not everybody needs to qualify for an IEP. So I'm saying that as eloquently as I can to say it's a district-wide effort.
For the community, can you just explain what, again, I know what it is, just what is Tier 1 and Tier 2? So just,
You take that, Laura.
what does that mean? That if we focus on those areas, it potentially could lead to fewer students qualifying or needing it.
So IDEA requires that we serve students in their least restrictive environment. And so we want all of our students to participate with their peers in general education to the maximum extent possible. But once students show a gap and are struggling, then the school identifies them, and Brenda Sparks is well-versed in this. They take them to their child study teams, and they determine that that child maybe needs a little extra support, which we call Tier 1 service, and so then they get some interventions. And through the review process, so the data study process that the schools go through on their cycle of data reviews, then they determine this child is doing well in Tier 1, doesn't need Tier 1, or is still struggling and qualifies or they want to elevate the service to a Tier 2 service. And so the child will stay in the Tier 2 service for a period of time, and then finally the team, the child study team or the data review process will say, you know what, it's time, this child needs more support, let's go ahead and start the evaluation. So we do try to keep students, and the district tries, and like Jason said, it's a district effort, to keep students in their least restrictive environment to the maximum extent possible. And I like that because kids mature at different rates. And so some of our youngest kids that show the biggest gaps, once they get acclimated to school and once they get some support, we see them close that gap. And so I don't want I want to caution against us automatically going to special education, because we see a lot of kids catch up. But once we see that the kids aren't going to catch up, then they do go through an evaluation process, and that determines if they're going to qualify. And then we provide what's called the Tier 3 supports, also known as special education services. I wanted to go back a little bit to part of your question. I think you asked, if I understood your question, was what are we doing to kind of delay the route to special education? And Jason brought up core instruction. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't bring up the impact of letters training. That was a huge lift the state brought in. It wasn't popular. It was difficult in our district even to get the buy-in. But with that level of training, it has the possibility to really impact the classroom and that core 1 instruction for kids. And then we've done a better job, I think, in the time I've been here, to identify some targeted resources that we're seeing better impacts for kids and really seeing some results from that. So I would like to say that we could see an immediate turnaround in this, but data shows it's going to be, with the letters training, it's going to be at least 10 years before we start to see that turnaround. Now, that doesn't answer your question about the budget and the anxiety we have around the budget. Jason told you how long he's been around, and I've been around maybe as long. The budget is always a concern. And so we do our best, and I'm not going to give you a good answer for your concern or your question, but we have to support core instruction, and that's all of us. And we do that through our training. We do it through attendance at the meetings when we're saying, is this child really ready for an evaluation, or can we continue to provide some supports? So I can't say enough about the addition of our supervisors to our team, because before our supervisors, it was probably 3 or 4 trying to be in every classroom or trying to talk to our new teachers and do that training. With the staff that we have now, we are really able to get in there and work with teachers and slow down the referral to special ed, but also to talk about what's appropriate once they qualify. They shouldn't qualify for every service in the book, and we've seen that in the past as well. So I think our addition of our supervisors has been a tremendous impact in that. All that to say, I didn't answer your question.
I appreciate all the information, and I'm sure the public listening, hopefully there's a bunch of them, do too.
Thank you, and I appreciate that as well, and I'm only going to chime in that it is all about high-quality classroom instruction first for all students, even those students who may end up becoming students with special needs, but we have to focus on, high-quality classroom instruction. That's why we've made those investments again in professional development. That's why, since being here the last 6 years, it's been now 3 years since we've had 5 additional days throughout the school year to provide professional development for our teachers, but we're focusing on improving high quality, improving classroom instruction, make sure staff and families are aware of what is being asked of our students, trying to make sure we focus on building positive learning environments in the classroom. Those are the kind of trainings and opportunities that our staff are receiving in hopes that we are building, again, high-quality learning environments for all students by getting upstream before students either need special education or special education is what is sought after because they feel like that's the only thing that can be done. So I think we are poised in the district for slowing it down and making sure that only those who really need it get it. And hopefully with high quality instruction, we can have more of our students not needing that support. I'm going to go to Member Lawford Kemp, who has been really patient.
No, that's okay. Thank you, Laura and Jason. I always appreciate your presentations, and I appreciate the work that you do across the district. So I'll start with that. I have a couple questions now, and then I did find out the answer. IDEA, reauthorized 1990, but it was first the Education for All Handicapped Children's Act, 1975. I remember lobbying in 1995 out in DC for one of the reauthorizations. So I just knew there was some long history. So anyways, thank you for that. I'd be interested in the trainings that you talked about. If you just let all of the board know, and there might be a topic or a time that maybe we're not the appointed person because it doesn't fit in regularly with our schedule, but maybe attending some. So if you have a schedule, that would be great. A couple questions from your presentation that I had also was on the slide that was the support and leadership provided by special services. And you talked about the ADSIS grant, and that it's, and it supports 6 teachers, and 4 of them you mentioned, or the 4 schools you mentioned, are all schools in my school district, or my District 1. Congdon, Homecroft, Lakewood, and Lester Park. So can you just briefly expand on kind of why they got this extra support and how 6 teachers are split between just those 4 schools, or is it
So
other
we
schools?
didn't always have access. It came in probably about 12 years ago, where we took a concerted effort at bringing this grant project, because it's matching funding. And a few schools on the eastern corridor did not have help for supports for kids before special education, because that's really what it's targeted for, is can we provide this kid some coaching, some interventions before we need to go to special education? That's the purpose of the project. These schools didn't have anything. The western corridor had different pots of money that they could provide some great reading and math intervention, but the eastern schools didn't have it. So that's really why. Make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense, and definitely. So is it 6 teachers, 6 additional, you mentioned 6 teachers, so are those 6 between those 4 schools? Are they fully special ed teachers? Is there something else that they're getting? Yeah.
Right, so they're not special ed teachers.
Okay.
They are interventionists.
Okay.
And there's 2 subjects they cover, it's math and reading. So 6 teachers, if I recall correctly, I believe Homecroft and Lakewood share a math teacher. And then they all have at least 1 reading teacher, the rest have a math teacher, but Homecroft and, let me get it right, Homecroft and Lakewood share a math teacher.
Okay. And when do we get this grant? Like, when did this go into effect, that we have this additional interventionist support for these schools?
It's a 2-year application process, and I think we've been doing it for over 12 years. I can find the exact date of when we first applied, but
That's general.
that's what's in my wheelhouse of memory, because I was a part of authoring some of the first applications for that.
Okay. I knew we had some extra, I just, I guess it clicked right now when you were presenting it on how many, what the focus was, so. And then I appreciated you mentioning that the professional development days have made a difference for your staff, and I know it was a big investment that we made as a district, and we felt it was really important as part of our strategic planning and all things like that. So really good to hear from you, your support on that. I had another question on the factors impacting the budget, and do we have student teachers that work in the special education department? And my reason for asking that is I'm just wondering, do we get, because of the shortages, by having student teachers sometimes, it's a great recruitment tool for people wanting to work in the Duluth Public Schools. And so I just, I know we have student teachers all over in regular class, in other classrooms. I'm just curious.
Oh, that's a great question. And we also have a partnership with the University of Minnesota. It's called the Next Gen Teach Project, where we're partnering with them. They have all the funding. We don't actually use Duluth dollars to support the program at all, because they've applied for some huge grants with the state of Minnesota. And that is a grow your own, using paraprofessionals as the first target employee that want to go back to school to get a teaching degree. And we have 3 candidates right now that have applied and are a part of the program. And I just got an email today that says they've got 4 candidates to join the next year's cohort. You can also get a master's degree in that program too. And the staff member gets all of their coursework paid for, and the Journey staff that is their mentor gets $4,000. When I had a student teacher back in the day, I had always had a student teacher every year, and I used to get $50 at the end of a student teaching experience. For them to get $4,000 is awesome. So it's a great project. And yes, do we have student teachers that are outside of that cohort? Absolutely. I'll lift up East High School. Does a nice job of attracting student teacher candidates, but then they keep them and they hire them. And we see several examples of really high quality staff members that have come as a student teacher and end up working for Duluth Public Schools. The trick is you have to find them a partner, male or female, whatever, but keep them local so that they don't move back to the cities, as an example. I told you I get punky in the afternoon.
Okay, great, thank you. And I appreciate you holding up the Grow Your Own. I know we had an update on that a few months ago. with the paras, and it's great to hear that we have 4 more candidates now coming through. Is there an intentional conversation that's held with the paraprofessionals, either on Professional Development Day, about that opportunity?
So the last PD day for paraprofessionals was the January teacher workday, when teachers got a chance to do their grades and progress reports and everything else. It was mid-January. Paras had a training day on that day. So I brought my lead person, her name is Danae from state of Minnesota. She came up and she presented with me to the paraprofessional group. So everybody heard the presentation. We had a table, we had a booth. She brought glam type stuff, you know, prizes, whatever, swag, whatever it's called. And she handed all that stuff out too. So all the paras that were interested in the program, her table was packed with people wanting to talk to her. So we did that at the last PD day.
Excellent, excellent.
It's
Okay.
not, also, if I could just add,
Yes.
it's not just the teachers. We get requests, or I get requests, you get requests from speech pathologists, psychologists, other areas where an internship is required, who want to come here and do their internship. So we also are intentional about setting that up, because that helps us as well in retaining staff and attracting new staff.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you so much. I think that's all of my questions. And I also appreciated you holding up the letters training and the importance of that in this discussion. And so, again, another investment from the state as well. So thank you on that. And I do happen to have hung out with some of those East special ed teachers recently, and they are a fun bunch. Yeah.
Thank you. I don't see any additional lights. Any closing comments?
We'll come back. We'd love to come and talk to the school board, and if there's something that's on your mind even after today's presentation, either another presentation, reach out, open door policy to talk to Laura or I at any time. Thanks for having us tonight.
Thank you. Board Chair, that concludes our presentation. Superintendent Magus, were you trying to share something? Nope. Board Chair, that concludes our meeting for today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Wait. Yes.